back to our channel to delve deeper into the thrilling world of Genoa. Sharon's shocking discovery that Marie is Matt's sister is a shocking secret. Today is a great day to analyze the explosive developments in this television series. Let's dive straight into the breathtaking revelations that are about to change everything. The atmosphere in Genoa City has grown thick with an unspoken, suffocating tension, primarily centered around the fragile rehabilitation of Nick Newman and the sinister, lingering presence of Matt Clark. Sharon Rosales, operating on a hyper-vigilant frequency, has been watching the shadows closely, acutely aware of the historical devastation Matt has inflicted upon her family. Her maternal and protective instincts have been entirely consumed by Nick's vulnerable state, making her deeply suspicious of any new variables introduced into his chaotic orbit. The sudden appearance of Marie Kirkland at the rehabilitation center had already triggered Sharon's finely tuned radar, but she could never have anticipated the catastrophic magnitude of the secret lurking just beneath the surface of Marie's seemingly innocent arrival. The labyrinth of deception in Genoa City is notoriously complex, but the truth about to be unearthed threatens to sever the fundamental ties of trust and sanity for everyone involved. The inciting incident of this impending disaster occurs in a quiet, unassuming moment, the kind where the most dangerous secrets invariably slip through the cracks. Sharon finds herself inadvertently positioned in the shadows, her presence entirely unnoticed, as she overhears Matt Clark engaged in a hushed, frantic phone conversation with an unidentified caller. The tone of Matt's voice, usually dripping with arrogant confidence or sociopathic charm, is replaced by a desperate, defensive urgency. Sharon listens with bated breath as Matt explicitly mentions Marie by name, followed by a chilling reference to a deeply buried family secret. The sheer impossibility of Matt Clark, a man devoid of familial loyalty and known only for his destructive isolation, harboring a secret connection to the exact woman currently intertwined with Nick Newman, sends a visceral shockwave through Sharon's entire nervous system. The pieces of a terrifying puzzle begin to snap into place, painting a picture of manipulation so profound it leaves Sharon breathless with righteous fury. Driven by a fierce, uncompromising need to protect her family, Sharon refuses to let this revelation linger in the shadows. She steps out of her concealment and corners Matt, effectively trapping him in a confrontation that crackles with decades of historical animosity. Sharon demands absolute transparency, her voice devoid of any fear, replacing it entirely with the authority of a woman who has survived his worst torments and refuses to let him victimize anyone else. She aggressively interrogates him about his exact relationship with Marie Kirkland, systematically dismantling his usual defenses and evasive maneuvers. Matt attempts to deploy his trademark manipulation, searching for a psychological exit, but Sharon blocks every path, leveraging her knowledge of his precarious standing in Genoa City to force his hand. The physical and emotional space between them narrows, transforming the confrontation into a high-stakes psychological war where only the brutal truth can serve as a ceasefire. Backed into an inescapable corner and stripped of his usual armor, Matt reluctantly surrenders to the pressure, delivering a confession that shakes the very foundation of Sharon's reality. With a heavy, defeated reluctance, he admits that Marie Kirkland is not a stranger, nor a mere pawn, but his biological half-sister. The revelation hangs in the air, dense and horrifying. Matt delves into his twisted justification for this massive deception, explaining that he kept their blood tie a closely guarded secret for years out of a desperate, paradoxical desire to protect her. He confesses his deep-seated fear of judgment, acknowledging that his own dark, criminal legacy would act as a toxic shadow over Marie's life. In a rare, unsettling display of genuine vulnerability from a known monster, Matt reveals that he chose to remain a ghost to her, hiding in plain sight in Genoa City, because he believed his absence was the only way to shield her from the destruction that inevitably follows his name. The weight of this monumental truth immediately transfers onto Sharon's shoulders, plunging her into a profound internal conflict. She processes the devastating implications of Matt's confession, acutely aware of the collateral damage this secret will cause. Her thoughts instantly race to Nick, who is currently fighting for his life and his sobriety in the rehabilitation center, entirely unaware that the woman he is growing close to shares DNA with the architect of his family's worst nightmares. Sharon understands that delivering this truth to Marie will completely destroy the young woman's fragile recovery and shatter her world into unrecognizable fragments. Yet, The alternative, allowing Nick to remain exposed to the toxic gravity of Matt Clark's bloodline, is a risk Sharon is absolutely unwilling to take. She wrestles with the heavy ethical burden of becoming the harbinger of doom for an innocent woman, ultimately deciding that her paramount loyalty must be to Nick's survival. Steeling her resolve, Sharon prepares herself for the agonizing task of shattering Marie's reality. The emotional preparation is grueling, as Sharon reflects on her own past traumas and how secrets have consistently acted as a slow-acting poison within the Newman family. She knows that the truth, no matter how brutal and destructive in the short term, is the only weapon capable of severing the invisible strings Matt has been pulling. Sharon takes the heavy, deliberate steps toward finding Marie, carrying the weight of a revelation that will act as an emotional explosive. The silence surrounding her journey feels foreboding, a calm before a catastrophic storm that will inevitably alter the trajectory of multiple lives. Sharon's protective instincts override her empathy for Marie's impending pain, solidifying her determination to cleanse Nick's environment of any hidden threats, regardless of the human cost. When Sharon finally sits down with Marie, the atmosphere instantly shifts, heavy with an unspoken dread. Without the use of dramatic outbursts, Sharon carefully and methodically dismantles Marie's understanding of her own life. She delivers the news with a somber, unwavering clarity, stripping away the idealized image Marie has held of her long-lost, missing brother. Sharon reveals that the man Marie has spent years desperately seeking, the brother she believed was simply lost to the world, is none other than Matt Clark. She does not spare Marie the horrifying context, explicitly detailing Matt's notorious criminal past, his sociopathic tendencies, and the profound trauma he has inflicted upon the residents of Genoa City. The revelation is delivered as a sterile, undeniable fact, leaving absolutely no room for misinterpretation or denial, ensuring that Marie comprehends the full, terrifying scope of her family's dark legacy. The immediate aftermath of Sharon's revelation triggers a total psychological and physical collapse within Marie. The color violently drains from her face as the cognitive dissonance of the truth threatens to tear her mind apart. She is forced to reconcile her loving, nostalgic memories of a brother with the monstrous, objective reality of Matt Clark's public persona. The absolute shock that he has been living in Genoa City, breathing the same air, walking the same streets, yet actively choosing to remain a ghost while she suffered through the agonizing depths of her addiction and loneliness, is a betrayal too massive to process. Marie's entire body reacts to the trauma of the lie, her fragile stability crumbling as the realization sets in that her entire life narrative has been built on a foundation of deliberate, cruel omission by the one person who was supposed to protect her. This devastating revelation immediately plunges Marie into a profound and terrifying identity crisis. She begins to grapple with the horrifying implications of her own bloodline, terrified by the genetic link she shares with a documented sociopath. She questions every memory, every personality trait, and every dark impulse she has ever experienced, wondering if the same inherited darkness that consumed Matt is lying dormant within her own soul. The feeling of being entirely violated by this deception strips away her sense of self, leaving her in a free fall of paranoia and self-doubt. Marie struggles to understand who she is, if the fundamental truth of her origin is rooted in criminality and manipulation. The crisis forces her to re-evaluate her entire existence, wondering if she is destined to follow in the destructive footsteps of the brother who abandoned her to protect her from himself. The catastrophic ripple effect of this secret instantly taints Marie's fragile connection to Nick Newman. The realization of her true identity reframes her entire relationship with him, transforming her from a supportive fellow, recovering addict, into an unwitting Trojan horse planted in the center of his life. Marie knows intimately how deeply Nick has been victimized by Matt, and she suddenly feels an overwhelming, crushing guilt by association. She views her mere existence as a direct threat to the Newman family, terrified that her presence will serve as a constant, psychological trigger for Nick's trauma. The shared struggles with addiction that once bonded them are now entirely overshadowed by the monstrous shadow of her brother, leaving Marie feeling isolated and dangerous to the man she has come to care for. Consumed by this newfound, toxic reality, Marie is forced to question the viability of her relationship with Nick. She agonizes over whether Nick will ever be able to look at her without seeing the ghost of his tormentor staring back at him. The emotional chasm created by this secret feels insurmountable, prompting Marie to wonder if their connection was a cruel, cosmic joke or a twisted manipulation orchestrated by fate. The agony of wanting to lean on Nick for support during the darkest moment of her life is fiercely combated by the terrifying thought that seeking his comfort will ultimately push him back into the abyss of his addiction. Marie is paralyzed by the fear that she is inherently toxic to Nick, struggling with the urge to flee Genoa City to spare him the pain of associating with Matt Clark's bloodline. However, as the initial shock begins to subside, Marie's passive victimhood slowly transitions into a burning, righteous anger. The tears of betrayal dry on her face, replaced by a fierce, unyielding determination to confront the architect of her misery. She refuses to remain a helpless pawn in Matt's twisted, narcissistic narrative of protection. The realization that he played God with her life, allowing her to suffer in ignorance while he watched from the shadows, ignites a dormant strength within her. Marie resolves to track down Matt, demanding to look him in the eye and force him to answer for his deceptive silence. She needs to understand the true motives behind his actions, refusing to accept his cowardly justification of protecting her as anything more than a self-serving lie to avoid accountability. A monumental and agonizing choice now looms heavily over Marie's future. She stands at a terrifying crossroads, forced to decide whether she will embrace the brother she lost, accepting the monster he has become in a desperate bid for family, or if she will sever the blood tie completely to protect her own soul and preserve Nick's sanity. This psychological warfare between deep-seated familial loyalty and the urgent need for moral preservation threatens to tear her apart. Marie knows that whichever path she chooses will leave permanent, unhealing scars on her psyche. The burden of this decision is entirely hers to bear, a cruel inheritance from a brother who fundamentally altered the course of her life without ever asking for her consent. As Marie prepares to take her first, heavy steps toward a confrontation with Matt, the atmosphere in Genoa City reaches a boiling point. The impending collision between a shattered, betrayed sister and her sociopathic, defensive brother promises to be a spectacle of emotional devastation. This dark family secret acts as a ticking detonator, threatening to blow up the fragile peace and drag the entire Newman family into a catastrophic, unavoidable war. The lines between victim and threat have been irreparably blurred, leaving everyone vulnerable to the fallout. As the shadows lengthen and the truth finally steps into the light, the residents of Genoa City are left holding their breath, waiting for the inevitable explosion that will change their lives forever, wondering who will survive the blast and who will be buried beneath the rubble of Matt Clark's toxic legacy.